for inviting me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be doing this. My apologies in advance for any omissions. I've got something written down in front of me just to keep me on track so that I don't digress away. Mostly it's a printout from what myself and my wife wrote in Light of Divinity, and I've got a few other points because that ends in 2007, and there've been things happening since by Guruji's grace. So I just needed to make sure that I don't omit anything. Last time I did this in the other platform, I think there were quite a few omissions which I later remembered. I didn't want that to happen this time. So I'll start off way back in 2001, in July, when we met Guruji for the first time. But even before that, I should give you a bit of a background, just to demonstrate how, kind of not sorted my life was before I met Guruji. So
Uncle, sorry to interrupt you, but अगर हिंदी का भी मिक्सचर कर देंगे तो समझने में आसानी रहेगी.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. मेरा हिंदी कोई बहुत अच्छा नहीं है.
चलेगा जैसे भी है वो चलेगा.
ठीक है.
चलेगा दौड़ेगा.
So I graduated in mechanical engineering, Jadavpur University se, or I got kind of a dream job from the campus and all that way back in 1996. But after that, sort of my life started going a bit south. I realized I was not cut out for mechanical engineering. It was way too much hard work, physical work, traveling from site to site. I was posted in Pune and Hyderabad, and kind of went on holiday back to Calcutta and never came back to the job. Kind of got disillusioned with corporate, tried civil services, prepared for the UPSC exam. Although the success rate from Bengal is very poor, and I already sort of had my career sort of built, so it's very difficult to focus on something so new. I was doing that somehow, and then I met my wife. We'd come for the same course, and decided that we had to ditch that and get married quickly. But I needed a job before that. Started reading Oracle out of desperation at home because that was the in thing back then. Even managed to land a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers in Kolkata, but because I didn't have any work experience, it was purely based on my reading of software books and my academic performances in the past. I got the job, but it wasn't paying enough. And within 3 months of getting the job, got married. So financially, I was pretty stressed out. And the trend हुआ करता था कि for any software professional to sort of try going to the US or the UK. For me, it was not that kind of a luxury. It was just out of desperation because I realized that I needed earning in dollars or pounds, whatever, as soon as I could. So started applying for all these body shopping sort of contracts. Had success with a couple, but जैसे कि तब हुआ करता था, I don't know whether that's still the case. USIS, they open up for visas only at a certain time of the year, and then there is a lottery and all that. तो wait कर रहा था मैं उस समय. I don't remember where I got an email ID from. Siemens Gurgaon, someone in Siemens Gurgaon. I just applied. I still can't remember who gave me the CV. I can guess who did, but anyway, the point is, I got a call back and got an interview. Cleared the interview. और वो overseas के लिए था. The person they were looking for would be ready to move straight away to the UK, and that kind of matched exactly what I was trying to do then. So I traveled to Delhi, cut short my other job, traveled to Delhi, and the idea was I was going to the UK within a week or so, but that didn't happen for the next 9-10 months. So that's when I spent quite a bit of time in the Delhi office, came in contact with Colonel Chatterjee, who was one of Guruji's oldest disciples. And he kept talking about Guruji. So as I said, in July 2001, we went to see Guruji, booked. Unfortunately, he was out of station. He was in Jalandhar. Sudama uncle gave us that news and asked us to be back later in the month. So हम लोग end of the month we went there once more, and this time Guruji was there at Empire Estate. Sorry, it's just the clock that's gone off. I just wait until it goes off.
लंदन में सुबह के 6:30 बज रहे, probably his alarm has gone.
No, this is a clock, and it's
Okay.
15 minutes fast. It's kept that way by my wife. We are on a track. We do well up with our time, so that's why it's 15-minute fasts. We saw Guruji the first time in July 2001. And at that time, apart from the fact that, I was keeping waiting from my overseas assignments, I was officially offshore, which didn't solve any of my problems because I was there in Kolkata and I was earning less. I was earning slightly more in Delhi, but Delhi was 3 times expensive. I was supposed to go abroad in a few weeks, didn't happen in 8-9 months. And so I was stressed out, as I said, financially, and also on the personal front. My wife had a miscarriage, and the gynecologist said that if she didn't recover very quickly, there would be surgical intervention needed and all that. So on the first day that we met Guruji, actually I had already been trained by Colonel Chatterjee what to do, more importantly, what not to do. Not to try and initiate a conversation with Guruji the first time, at least on the first day. He said that Guruji spoke to people that he wanted to speak to. So he wanted us to pray. And if by chance Guruji spoke to us, tell him that we are from Siemens. Guruji had a lot of blessings for Siemens people. And we were not really. And back then, I think the way it worked was everybody would have prasad, but it's only some people that Guruji would selectively ask to stay back for langar, had langar. So not everyone had langar, like people did later. So हम लोगों ने pray किया, and the chances of getting asked to stay back for langar was kind of remote. We understood that. But it so happened that on the very first day, Guruji spoke to my wife, asking where we were from. Obviously, he knew everything, but he still asked. And I was just behind my wife in the queue, and I said, we are from Siemens. For some reason, Guruji said, Kya, CBI? And I don't know why he said that. It's probably just was a joke to put us at ease. He did that later a few times. I'll come to that in a bit. That put us at ease straight away. And he asked us to stay back for langar. So we were very happy that happened on the first day itself. And then it was all bliss. So even the first day when we got back home, so overnight our life changed, and some of it happened physically straight away. My wife's condition got better and she didn't need a surgical intervention. And then some things unfolded a bit later. As in the next few months, I had my first overseas assignment. It wasn't a long-term one that I was looking for. It was a project managed by India, but we had to go out to do the requirements analysis first, come back to the development, and then go back and implement that in the UK. Quite a prestigious project. It was for the National Assembly for Wales. So I was going for 28 days at first, and I was thinking, it's best to take my wife along because Delhi was a new place. We were still adjusting there. We didn't know many people, and she could go back to Calcutta and then come back. But that would have been, a lot of hard work. So it was probably just easier for her to fly. Of course, the company wouldn't be paying for her ticket or anything, but I thought that, we could bear that ourselves. And interestingly, so my assignment for the first time round was only for 21 days. So somehow if it became 28 days, then there was a lot of allowance paid. And we kept praying silently, Guruji saying, all right, if it came to 28 days, then we would at least sort of get but it would be easier to pay for the flights and things like that for my wife. And actually, it became 29 days or 30 days. So it was purely Guruji's intervention. So then we understood that we had his blessings on that assignment. So we came back. It was very hard work, getting all the development done in time. Time was, of premium essence in that project. Then we took it, the product that we had developed back to the UK. And there, while implementing, there were lots and lots of issues. And we were just thinking that it came so close to sinking. At the last moment, there were lots of issues coming out, loads of requirements coming out. We couldn't push back on any of them because the situation was already a bit sensitive. They were getting rid of their old suppliers who they were in very good relationship with. We were looked upon as, kind of outsiders, I would say, being picked on for everything that, didn't work or kind of half work. Requirements started coming out of the woodwork. So, but somehow through Guruji's blessings, we made it. At the last moment, there's something that came up. I specifically remember it was supposed to work on two browsers. One was the Internet Explorer, the other one was the Netscape, which was quite big back then. And I realized that there was no way it was going to work in both. So we were there sitting 2 o'clock in the morning, trying various things out all day. It didn't work. And then I was probably recognizing the fact it wasn't going to work. And we had to go back saying, yeah, you have to click this button here to make this work. It's not going to work automatically, things like that. Something happened. So I kept praying and something happened. I don't quite remember. So there were lots of things that I was changing, lots of different permutations and combinations. And one of them stuck suddenly at 2 o'clock in the morning. After that, I didn't look at it because I knew that I wasn't doing it. I had tried several such things throughout the day and none of them worked. Now, after I prayed, something worked, and I couldn't recognize what exactly I had did, what combination. But what I did was I just saved it and kept it like that and went home. So the next day we went live, and the project was a grand success. Everybody in India was happy. So for a few days, they asked me to stay back, and I was thinking, yahi mauka hai long-term assignment ka, because they'll need people to maintain what we had done, because it was quite complicated. And if they did that, then I was one of the first candidates that they would consider. I knew that. So kept praying, but in about 4 months' time, they said, all right, thank you very much. We are done. We'll take it from here, and asked us to go home. So I was thinking, Guruji didn't listen to my prayer this time. He gave this assignment and made it a success, more importantly. And now he didn't extend me longer here. So when we were flying back to Heathrow, and when we handed our ticket at the counter, they said, you can't travel on this ticket. I said, why is that? They said that it was open for 4 months only, and it expired today. I thought, oh, that's not a problem for my ticket, because my company was going to pay for my ticket, but I would have to pay for my wife's ticket again. And then this guy said, oh, hang on, let me just talk to my manager. And then he came back saying, all right, you can travel today. Tomorrow it would have been too late. So today was last day, literally, when you could travel on this ticket. So I didn't have to purchase my wife's ticket once more. And I realized that, Guruji had done it, timed it so perfectly. One more day, and we would have been stuck. It's not just paying for the ticket. It's difficult to, it's quite a busy route. Back then it used to be quite a busy route. And maybe we would have to stay back for a couple of days before we got ticket of our choice and things like that. So that was clearly Guruji's doing. So then, following on from the success of that project, things started really looking up. Although I came back to India, I got what can be called a double promotion. So they made me skip one level and promote me to the next level, which is kind of rare. I haven't had that happen since. It's only once that it happened by Guruji's grace. And then from there, so spent a bit of time, a couple of years, 1.5 years in India, and that's mostly the time following on from there that we went to Guruji regularly every Thursday and Sunday. If we were in Delhi, would be at the Empire Estate, and that was kind of the time that we think back of when we are in, as in this country, there's a lot of, weather is not good. People get depressed quite quickly. With COVID, we've been stuck for about, I've been stuck, about 1 year, more than 1 year working from home, which is not good. So also things, go a bit up and down. And when they don't go to plan, then those 1.5 years are what we think back to when we used to visit Guruji regularly. So back to, where I was in terms of timeline. So it was after we came back for the first assignment, things started looking a bit down on the IT sector, mainly because of the post 9/11 depression, so which was really hitting the industry quite hard. And on top of that, मेरा boss ने मुझे बोल दिया कि now that you have done well in a project which was managed by India, you're not going abroad anymore, apart from a couple of weeks or a month or so, executive trips like that. That's because we want you to be doing things in India. Because the idea back then was, अगर body shop करना है तो किसी को भी भेज दो, लेकिन अगर कोई resource identified हो जाए जो काम कर सके तो keep him at home, send him out, for a couple of months or so. But long-term assignments, really a no-no. So I gave up on my hope. I thought, Guruji had just shown me 3 or 4 months.
आपकी हिंदी काफी अच्छी है.
Thank you. So suddenly I got a call from my boss's boss, because my boss was back in Calcutta attending to his father's bypass surgery. And when I was called, I was thinking, so back then people were being laid off. And he had called me after lunch, so I couldn't even have lunch properly. I was thinking it was my turn to get laid off, maybe. But I wasn't thinking, I had just performed well on a project, so maybe it's a bit too drastic. So I kept thinking. And when I met him eventually, he said, it's there is an assignment, which is a 6-month one in the UK, and your CV has been selected for that. So I was just asking, does BSG know? BSG was my immediate boss. And I was talking to his boss now. He said, don't worry about him. Just, make preparations. And so I think they needed a team of 5. He asked me to change, help others sort of get their CV along lines of my CV, and then leave with a team of 5. So that's what I did. But before that, lots of things happened. So sorry. Am I cutting out, or am I audible, or?
You are audible, but Sangat is requesting for you to come in Hindi.
All right. Okay.
Some mixture Hindi राधे कर दीजिए.
Okay. ठीक है.
और आपकी हिंदी बुरी नहीं है, अच्छा बोलते हैं.
नहीं, वो कभी-कभी वो
नहीं आता.
नहीं, कभी-कभी वर्ब का फॉर्म थोड़ा कंफ्यूज हो जाता हूँ मैं, because I didn't do it for a long time. So anyway, तो तब क्या होता था कि गुरुजी के पास अगर कोई वेडिंग या कोई भी फंक्शन के लिए गुरुजी को इनवाइट करते थे, तो उनको बंच ऑफ इनविटेशन कार्ड दे देते थे, एंड इट वाज अप टू गुरुजी कि वो किसको वो कार्ड पसंद करे. तो उन दिनों हरविंदर सिंह साहब, जो कि सीमेंस के डायरेक्टर थे इंडिया में, ही वाज द टॉप मैन. बियॉन्ड हिम इट वाज द जर्मन्स. सो उनकी लड़की का शादी था. सो इट वाज काइंड ऑफ अ रॉयल वेडिंग इन सीमेंस. I was one of the junior most employees, so there is no reason कि मुझे invitation मिलेगा, because even my boss's boss would be lucky to get an invitation. लेकिन suddenly मेरे पास वो कार्ड आ गया. I think कर्नल चैटर्जी या कर्नल जोशी, I think it was Guruji gave it to Colonel Joshi to Colonel Chatterjee to me. There was a mistake. It was my name. मेरा नाम वो शायद कर्नल जोशी की हैंडराइटिंग में, लेकिन उसके साइड में थोड़ा सा साइड में completely different handwriting. It just said one word. It said England. And Colonel Chatterjee said कि गुरुजी ने खुद अपने हाथों से लिखा है. And he said, looks like you're going to be there for a long time. ना बोला 6 महीने का असाइनमेंट है, अभी थोड़े दिन में खत्म हो जाएगा. बोलता है नहीं, देख लेना. तो उधर इंग्लैंड लिखा हुआ था, बट एट दैट टाइम आई डिडंट रियलाइज कर्नल चैटर्जी वाज राइट. वो जो लिखा हुआ था, आई एम pretty sure that was the visa, the permanent residency, citizenship, passport, all sort of combined into that. वो overnight नहीं हुआ. So when we arrived, so this was in near Manchester, a place called Blackpool. वैसे भी नॉर्दर्न पार्ट ऑफ इंग्लैंड थोड़ा ऐसा है कि वो अपने टैलेंट में बिलीव करते हैं. बाहर से कोई आके काम करके चला जाए, दे आर नॉट रियली अप्रूविंग ऑफ दिस. एग्जाम्पल है, यॉर्कशायर क्रिकेट काउंटी में कभी कोई फॉरेन प्लेयर नहीं रिक्रूट हुआ था. द फर्स्ट पर्सन हु एक्चुअली प्लेड फॉर देम वाज सचिन तेंदुलकर. So that's the level to which they go. So they don't really want other people to do their work. Quite finicky about that. तो हमारा असाइनमेंट 6 months का था. जब हम पहुंचे तो वो लग रहा था कि 4 months में खत्म हो जाएगा, क्योंकि काम एक्चुअली वो लोग कर चुके थे, हमें बताए नहीं थे. काम वो कर चुके थे, हमसे खाली रिव्यू करवा रहे थे, जस्ट टू पुट द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑन आवर शोल्डर्स. लेकिन फिर गुरुजी के कृपा से वो असाइनमेंट आगे बढ़ा, और वो 4 महीने का 6 महीने हो गया, फिर 6 का 9. एट द एंड ऑफ 9 months एक और प्रोजेक्ट आ गया, और उस प्रोजेक्ट के लिए 5 में से 2 लोगों को रहने के लिए बोला गया और बाकी 3 वापस चले गए. सो आई वाज वन ऑफ दोस 2. फिर it continued for about, I think, 8-9 more months, and then it was kind of finishing off. And exactly then something happened. So there was something that came up at a place called Telford, which was in West Midlands, Birmingham के पास. तो मुझे पूछा गया, do you want to go? I said, yeah, why not? So we ended up in Telford, which was like a village. It was there was a city center, a town center rather, which had a few shops. After 8 o'clock, the whole village went to sleep. But it was at least continuing the work in the UK, so we didn't mind. So my wife got pregnant there. तब हम सोच रहे थे कि now we were starting to worry a little, क्योंकि वहाँ जो hospital था, that was maternity unit was run by midwives, not consultants. There was a hospital called Royal Shrewsbury Hospital, which was about 16 miles away. और chances था कि मेरी wife उधर ही referred होंगी, क्योंकि she had problems with her blood pressure. There is a small story on that. I'll come to that later. So we were thinking कि कैसे होगा, क्योंकि I wasn't driving because it was past 1 year. I couldn't use my driving license, Indian driving license, to drive there unless I passed the driving test, which is quite difficult and time consuming. और so hospital आना जाना फिर कैसे करूँगा. So I was, it was okay, taking a taxi and all that. लेकिन पता नहीं कि रात को अगर लेबर हुआ तो तब क्या मिलेगा. एम्बुलेंस बुला सकते हैं, but they might take time, although in this country it's not bad, the ambulance service. So we were thinking all this, but actually you're used to that place, so we were not even thinking of moving somewhere else, even if we had the option. सोचा कि काम चला लेंगे. It's only 16 miles, it's not much. लेकिन suddenly क्या हुआ, the Telford office got closed. We were told one day that we will have to shift to Nottingham. Nottingham is a much bigger city, and it had one of the best maternity units in the Queen's Medical Hospital. So initially the reaction was, "Abhi hum yahan settled the, fir naya jagah jana padega, we have to look for a house and all that, to get used to it." But I thought, if Guruji has done it, there must be a reason for that. So, and then we went to Nottingham. We got a house right almost next to the Queen's Medical Hospital. My wife, her account moved to there. She got looked after by one of the best consultants in the country. She was quite down to earth. We didn't realize that at the time. लेकिन 3-4 साल बाद जब वो टीवी पे आ गए तो हमें पता चला कि she was quite one of the best. But even before all that, so नॉटिंघम में हमने जो घर लिया रेंट पे, उस वो एक स्टोरी है कि the work pressure was so much that we were not allowed to go to Nottingham, look for a house even over the weekend, because we were completely snowed under. तो क्या हुआ, हमारा जो मैनेजर, जो क्लाइंट मैनेजर को रिपोर्ट करते थे, वो क्लाइंट मैनेजर हमारे लिए जाके घर देख रहे थे. एंड सो ही वाज जस्ट गिवन अ बजट कि ऐसे मतलब इतने बजट के अंदर रेंट के अंदर घर देखना. बट आई वाजंट लाइकिंग द हाउसेस दैट ही वाज लुकिंग अप, एंड आई टर्न डाउन अ फ्यू. मेरा मैनेजर हैप्पी नहीं था क्योंकि उसका बॉस का देखा हुआ घर मैंने टर्न डाउन किया. सो आई वेंट ऑन द इंटरनेट. एक गूगल में फर्स्ट हिट, I saw a house, I liked it, and then somehow I felt that it was Guruji's doing, so he's the one who has looked it up for me. So first hit ये एकदम शुरू में हुआ था. फिर जब 15-20 days के बाद फिर से मैं देखा तो फिर तब भी वो घर था. तो मैं उसके मैनेजर को बोला कि कैन यू डू मी अ फेवर, कैन यू जस्ट बुक दिस हाउस फॉर मी. सो देन दे स्टार्टेड सेइंग कि यूके में यू हैव टू एक्चुअली व्यू अ हाउस फिजिकली, either you or your representative, to be able to rent it. That's the rule. So I told my manager's manager to actually be my representative and rent it for me without even me looking at it directly. So he was happy doing that. And so we actually just took a taxi and moved there from Telford straight to Nottingham. And actually my house, the house that I had rented, turned out to be the best one amongst all the colleagues. So no one else was happy with their house. But I was. It was right next to the hospital, and it was on quite a big road. Had a 15-foot footpath. It's actually one of the best houses that we have lived in the UK. And that worked very well. So house to ho gaya. Fir, everything was going fine. My wife was happy with the care that she was getting from the hospital, the checks and all that. So इसमें एक incident इसमें मुझे याद है कि we used to go for regular checks, and they used to monitor the fetal heartbeat and all that. तो एक दिन क्या हुआ, heartbeat usually 160-ish आता था fetal heartbeat. एक दिन वो 210, 220 ऐसे हो गया. तो जो nurse थी, she got a bit scared, but she was not showing it. She was saying, no, kabhi kabhi hota hai aisa. But every time she was looking at the monitor, she was reacting. I could understand that, and we panicked as well. So she rushed away to get the doctor. And then I had my Guruji's, Guruji gave me a photo. So he gave me one photo. He gave my wife 2 photos. One because she silently prayed for her dad to have one. So anyway, I had my photo, and Guruji in a blue gown, and I touched it to my wife's bum. और मृत्युंजय महामृत्युंजय मंत्र बोला 2-3 बार. तो then suddenly it came down, just dropped to normal heartbeat. And by the time the doctor or the senior nurse was there, and she said, yeah, everything is fine, why did you rush? So the other nurse was saying, no, it was way up to 210, 220. I saw that. So she was looking like a fool because she was kind of embarrassed. She just called her superior for no reason at all. Then we said, no, it was actually she's right. It was quite abnormal. Lekin kuch hua, so it came down. I didn't tell them obviously kya hua, because there is no point in confusing them more. They were already confused. So that happened one day, and then the other thing that happened was this project came with a hard deadline. And I was thinking that if we met the deadline, then it would be on the 9th month of pregnancy. And at that time, we wouldn't be able to fly back to India. So what to do? तो मैं अपने प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर के साथ बात किया, जगमीत मुझे बोला, अरे तुम आईटी प्रोफेशनल हो, आप आर यू क्रेजी, डू यू थिंक दिस इज गोइंग टू गेट ओवर बाय दैट टाइम? बट ही सेड डोंट इवन थिंक ऑफ गोइंग बैक, तुम्हारा बेटा यहाँ बड़ा हो जाएगा जब तक ये प्रोजेक्ट खत्म होगा. And he wasn't really wrong, because that's how deadlines moved. Big projects are never estimated correctly, even now. So back then, if someone said that something would be ending middle of the year, then it had to be the middle of next year at the very least. Usually with big projects, things happen, and even then things would not be wrapped up. So I thought something like that was going to happen, but I was wrong. For just one time in all my years in IT, I have seen the project end in time, and that's because उसमें बहुत penalties था. If the deadline was failed, there would be a lot of money changing hands. So क्या हुआ, सारे लोग चले गए, मैं अकेले, मैं मेरी wife, she went to hospital in labor. There was no one around. And जैसे गुरुजी बोलते थे, घिसेगा नहीं तो सोना कैसे बनेगा. तो it was my turn to undergo that. So my wife had quite a painful labor for more than, I think, 24 hours. And then they had to intervene. And my son was delivered. So by the time he was delivered, his heart rate had fallen to 60. He wouldn't pass urine for the first few days, and everybody started doubting the kidneys, because my wife had a 2-vessel cord as opposed to a 3-vessel one. And they were sort of doing all sorts of, he showed a bit of infection as well, and they were doing blood tests, lumbar punctures. 2-3 day old baby, couldn't even see that. My wife was seriously ill with urinary infection. And so she was in ITU. My son was in ITU, both for different reasons. I was there all alone, no friend, no family. So it's quite a tough time. But I had my Guruji's photograph and all his blessings. He's the one who sent me to England. So I knew that he was going to take care. And so so usually people, for normal deliveries, people go in the morning and come out by the next morning, or even some people don't even stay overnight. Like my family was there for 14 days. And by the time so they came out, we were all quite tired, and we thought at least 1 month we had to stay there, because we wouldn't be able to fly back to India. My son's eardrums would have been in danger if he took a flight earlier than at least a month. Ideally, should have been 3 months, लेकिन 1 महीने तो कम से कम रहना पड़ेगा. So luckily they paid me the salary, so I didn't mind. But I was thinking, so that was the end of the assignment. And then suddenly something came up at the BBC in London. But that had a joining date, which was set in stone. So I think with the 20-day-old child, and that too, the child and the mom spent 14 days in hospital. So I was looking at moving from Nottingham to London to join that BBC, to get that BBC assignment. At first thought, no, that's ridiculous, that's not going to happen. But then actually Guruji did make it happen. So we actually put up in a hotel in Earl's Court in West London for about 14 days. Had the training, that was the mandatory one. Went back, Nottingham का घर छोड़ दिया, फिर सब कुछ लेके shift हो गया London. So looking back now, it seems logistically, from a health point of view, how difficult that must have been. But it was difficult, but we always knew that we had Guruji's blessings. So all that happened, and so that assignment kind of went on from 1 year to the other, and until such time as they offered to localize me. So Siemens UK wrote to Siemens India saying they wanted to have me permanently in the UK in their role rather than rather than as an employee body shopped from Siemens India. And now so I would still technically be in Siemens. So I said yes, because I'd been told that Guruji used to say that Siemens is a big sheep, bada jahaj hai, usko mat chhodna. So that was his general view, and I thought it applied to me as well. Although koi tha the Siemens se hi जिसको उन्होंने advice दिया Siemens छोड़ने के लिए, and then he became a vice president at Visa. So his advice kept varying from people to people, obviously. लेकिन मैं सोचा कि as advised by Colonel Chatterjee, shouldn't leave Siemens. And this was within Siemens. I was just leaving Siemens India to join Siemens UK, which wasn't really bad. So, then I got kind of settled here, spent a few years and had my PR and then my citizenship and passport and all that. So what he had written quite a few years ago on that wedding card, it still sort of made me settle down here, sort of despite all odds. A few times the people who tried to get me back to India, I had almost started packing my bags a few times, but because Guruji had written England, I sort of ended up settling down here. Although I did want to go back after my son was 5 years old. I really wanted his education to be in India. मेरे कुछ misconceptions थे about education system in this country. पहले मैं समझा नहीं था. I always wanted my son to be educated in India, but Guruji sort of the way he planned things, it didn't happen. So I'll come to that bit now. But in terms of settling down here, the problem is my wife's only surviving parent back then was her father, and he used to look after her sister. Sister ko Down syndrome tha. So it was a problem because we wouldn't be able to visit as frequently. हम दिल्ली में होते थे तो 2-3-4 महीने के बाद कलकत्ता जाते थे, but now it wouldn't be possible. So my wife had prayed to Guruji silently one day just before we came to the UK. और अपने father का photo लेके वो गुरुजी के पास she was trying to show Guruji for blessings. And even before she said that, Guruji, Guruji was passing, he was going from his throne to his room, and my wife got up. I think it was the time that we were all going home. Guruji saw the photo in my wife's hand, said, and all my wife said was, "This is my parent." And then Guruji said, "Sadde to vadda parent kaun hai?" So meaning, who is a bigger parent than me? That's all he said. And my wife wasn't even sure what he exactly meant by that. But since then, my father-in-law, in 2008, he had a stroke, which he survived. And then in 2014, he had a bladder tumor, which the doctors thought had high chances of being malignant, and he survived. He came back strong from both. He passed away only a few months back, but he was 88 plus then. And he probably suffered for about a month, but other than that, didn't have organ failures or any paralysis, anything like that. He passed away peacefully. So Guruji did take care of her parent, all the time that we weren't there. He didn't have any problems with health or anything else. So yeah, going back to the going back to the timeline that I was following. So my son was born with a few allergies, with many allergies, in fact. So दूध से allergy, nuts allergy, हर type का nuts allergy, soya allergy. So the alternative, दूध का alternative जो soya होता है, even that was not allowed. Apart from that, हर एक दिन कोई ना कोई चीज, जैसे raw potato का skin से उसको allergy था, boiled or fried was fine. So we really stuck. कहीं भी घूमने जाओ, तो घर से खाना बना के लेके जाना पड़ता। होटल में अगर कोई कहीं जाने का प्लान है तो सबसे पहले हर एक होटल में फोन करके पूछना पड़ता था कि कोई वहाँ किचन में उसको अलग से उसका चावल और दाल वो बॉयल करके देंगे कि नहीं देंगे। Otherwise, my wife would have to cook from home. She had to do that anyway. But for the first day or 1.5 days, she could take it from home. But after, even then, we had to put it in the fridge and so on. So it was a pain traveling. And everybody was saying that in 5 years he would get cured. But on the 5th year, when we tested, and I was looking up jobs in Kolkata because I got my citizenship there. I was thinking now it's time to come back. I have the passport anyway. I could come back if I wanted to. But the idea was to get my son educated in India back then. But the test that he had in his 5th year showed that the allergy had even gone worse. We had seen that it was very difficult India में, क्योंकि जो alternative milk हमें use करना पड़ता था milk के alternative, soya तो वो ले नहीं सकता था, तो it was some drink made of rice which wasn't there in India back then. And also the general awareness of allergies is not that much. India में लोगों को ज़्यादा allergy नहीं होता, तब तो नहीं होता था, अभी शायद होने लगा थोड़ा थोड़ा. तो and also food labeled nahi hota tha, so we always when we were visiting India we were always thinking he could have an anaphylaxis attack anytime. So we used to carry the EpiPen legally. He still does that, but having to administer the EpiPen is a tough thing when people are panicking. So India में तो possible नहीं था उसको. Practically it would have been very difficult and dangerous to bring him back to India. So we decided to stay back. And then my son started going to school. He hardly speaks Bengali. He doesn't speak any Hindi. Bengali भी उसका घर पे जो हम बात करते हैं is mainly colloquial. So after that started, the chances of going back were nil, really. But in terms of education, Guruji had sorted that out. तो यहाँ पे state education जो होता है वो अच्छा होता है, but most of the Indians and Asian families go to some schools called grammar schools. Grammar schools के साथ grammar का कोई link नहीं है. They're just called grammar schools. They're actually state schools, but they have selection criteria. So it's like there's a screening that happens through competitive exams. And all the Asian families, mainly Indian families and Sri Lankan families, try that. It's quite tough for that age. So it's called 11 plus, or from about 10 years of age, you start doing that. You have to prepare for about 1 year. Lots of things: English, maths, verbal reasoning, non-verbal reasoning. It's quite for the age, it's quite difficult. So my son did all that and got through in all the schools that he wanted. But I kept thinking it would have been very good if we could afford private education. Private education बहुत expensive होता है. Normal earnings से उसको maintain करना without scholarship is difficult. Scholarship भी ये लोग maximum 25% देते हैं. उससे कुछ मतलब फर्क तो पड़ता है, but उतना फर्क भी नहीं पड़ता है. 75% is still quite a lot. So my son had taken a few private school exams, but मैं सोचा कि फायदा नहीं है. It's just a theoretical exercise, क्योंकि 25% अगर दे भी देगा तो भी it's not affordable. Even if it's affordable, when people have running contracts and all that, something happens, the market goes down or whatever, then it might not be maintainable. So, but he still took the exam, and the one that's close to our house is quite a good school, quite highly rated. तो हम एग्जाम तो हो गया, लेकिन उसका रिजल्ट निकलने से पहले पुराने स्कूल से हमें स्की ट्रिप जाना था. तो वी वर गोइंग टू स्विट्जरलैंड ऑन अ स्की ट्रिप. सो आई कॉल्ड द प्राइवेट स्कूल एंड टोल्ड देम कि अगर मेरा सन क्वालिफाई करे इंटरव्यू के लिए, तो इंटरव्यू भी होता है प्राइवेट स्कूल में. I said, just hold off for a few days. We are going to Switzerland. They were kind of dismissive. No. It's very competitive, So hardly, people get interview calls, and 1 in hundreds. So don't worry about it. You go on your holiday. Don't worry about this. I said, all right, by any chance, if he gets selected, then please let us know because we'll have to work around our timelines. So then we went on ski trip, and when we came back, they called us desperately, said, "Oh, your son has done very well in exam. We want to interview him as quickly as possible." And they did that, and he had a music audition as well. So between academic and music scholarship, he got a lot of scholarship, more than double of what I thought the maximum would be. So the rest, I think, I was confident I could pick up. So he started his private education, which is something that I would have only dreamt of, but Guruji made it happen. So with Guruji's grace, he has done very well so far. In academics as well as in music. He plays 4 instruments, and he's got gold in the Maths Junior Olympiad. The intermediate one, I think he took ahead of his age. I think it's still because of COVID, the results haven't come out or something. But the point is, Guruji, I was worried about education here, but Guruji sorted that out. He's probably having the best possible education that we could afford. So that's where our lives are at. And eventually, yeah, I did leave Siemens in 2011, and I was thinking, is it something I'm doing outside of what Guruji has permitted? Because when Siemens UK absorbed me, they were kind of clever. They just sort of grossed up the salary that I got here as allowance, and that became my official salary. Everything that I was getting in India, which was quite a bit, profit sharing and all that, the basic salary, वो सब कट ऑफ हो गया. उनका कहना था डिफरेंट कंट्रीज डिफरेंट रूल्स, तो इंडिया में जो मिलता था वो इधर नहीं मिलेगा. तो पहले मुझे इंडिया में जो मिलता था वो इंडिया में मिलता था और इधर जो मिलता था उधर मिलता था. लेकिन अभी इंडिया का कट ऑफ हो गया, इधर जो मिलता था उसी के ऊपर बेस करके मुझे मेरा पैकेज बना दिया. But because I hadn't applied for an independent visa or anything, so I just played along, said, okay, no problem. But that wasn't sustainable. So by 2011, time had come to leave Siemens, and I was thinking, should I actually be leaving Siemens? Because Colonel Chatterjee had said that Guruji had blessings for Siemens people, and if I leave Siemens, obviously I would stop being a Siemens person. So I was thinking, and it so happened, eventually I got a contract. I resigned, but it so happened that Siemens was getting taken over by Atos. So my last day at Siemens was Siemens' last day at Siemens. So I left on a Friday, and from the next Monday, Siemens was no longer Siemens. Siemens was Atos. So technically, I didn't leave Siemens. So that was impeccable timing. I did a contract for 5 months somewhere. But I always wanted to work in the finance industry in London because that's the best. To my liking, that was the best sort of domain that you could get into in London. I was a technical person, so domain really didn't matter for me. But I always kept thinking and that someday I would work for finance in London. So I got a contract in the insurance industry. So again, this was a 3-month contract, and I wanted a longer contract. They said, okay, then you have to go for another interview. So I went for another interview with जो manager BAU देखता था उसके साथ. He hardly asked me a question. He said, okay, you're all right. So I thought I was getting at least 6 months, but what I got was 4 months. So, but that 4-month contract sort of rolled on, got extended and all that. And I was there for 9 years. So there were some changes in rules. So from last year, I was outside of the normal taxation rules. So there is something called IR35 in this country. So contractor लोग जो होते हैं उसके बाहर होते हैं, तो they have a bit of flexibility with tax, whereas IR35 के अंदर जो होता है they get taxed at source. तो मैं जब rules change हुआ last year, तो they brought me inside, but inside they didn't give me a good package. So I thought Oh, okay. But there was COVID, sort of that sort of kind of sunk the industry. Things were very quiet, even though insurance was not impacted, but um, jobs were, very few and far between in the market. So I stayed on for one more year there, and a few opportunities came that, at the last moment that fell through because of budget cuts and things like that. And all those were inside IR35. But finally, last December, I got something which was still outside IR35. So I'm back in business now, but rules have changed. So I don't know for how long. But then looking back, I was thinking if I had got the ones that were narrow misses, then I would have lost them by now, or they were all inside IR35, but not as good. So Guruji made me wait a long time. And I had quite a few failed attempts, interviews that didn't work, or there were budget cuts, and they promised something and they came back saying they couldn't do it then. But eventually, the one that he gave me was better than the ones that didn't work out. So again, I was just starting to think that Guruji, why is Guruji not helping me this time? But eventually he did help me. And looking back, it seems that he gave me the right one rather than the ones that I was sorry that I didn't get. But that's a common theme across the time. Guruji se jo bhi mango, agar wo he knows better. So at times we ask for what we want, thinking that this is best, but actually. I've seen it many times, whether it's with foreign assignment or my son's education or his allergies. They took time to get sorted, but then what happens for the best, and we at times get frustrated thinking Guruji is not helping. Maybe we're not praying hard enough, but it turns out that he did what was best. It's just us who didn't realize at the time. So again, going back to two examples of that. So when my son, so remember the hospital that we mentioned that we were going to initially when my wife was pregnant, and when Guruji moved us to Nottingham, we were thinking, oh, we have to move during these conditions. So at the time, it seemed it would have been a difficult move. So traveling to a different place, getting adjusted there. But it so happened, and we were thinking, why did Guruji do that? And then we thought that Guruji did that because he wanted better care, maternity care for my wife. इसलिए हमें Nottingham भेज दिया. But only a couple of years back, I think last year it came out that the hospital, Royal Shrewsbury Hospital, where my wife would have been treated had Guruji not moved us, that hospital had serious flaws in their care, in infant care, and there were loads of, I think about nearly 100 infant deaths. And all that got exposed only recently. So this was way back in 2005 when Guruji moved us to Nottingham, taking us out of Shrewsbury so that we didn't end up going to that hospital eventually. लेकिन अभी पता चल रहा है कि उस हॉस्पिटल में इतने इन्फेंट डेथ्स हुए and there are investigations done now, and that has come to light only last year or the year before. But Guruji knew that all along, so Guruji just made us move from there. We didn't realize back then. As there are things which we realize why Guruji has done things in a particular way. So rather than what we thought would have been best at the time. Same with my son's allergies. So when my son had these allergies and we were kind of going crazy, we were getting calls from the schools कि उसको rash हो गया, and all. And my wife had to cook every meal. But traveling was very restricted. We were only confined to hotels that would let us cook or let us use their kitchen. और उसके लिए खिचड़ी वो प्रेशर कुकर उनको दे दो तो वो खिचड़ी उबाल के लेके ला के देता था. Not all hotels would allow that. So we were kind of stuck in many ways, and everybody was giving us different types of advice. Why don't you go to this faith healer, and all that. So we pushed back saying, नहीं गुरुजी जब इसको ठीक करते हैं तो तभी ठीक होगा ये, नहीं तो we don't want any intervention, external intervention. But people kept kind of pestering us, saying, why don't you go to, so there were people back in Calcutta who were going to one particular faith healer, and we were recommended. But we were kind of in a dilemma. So one day my wife had a dream. Guruji said, don't do anything. I'll fix him when he needs fixing. So I'll sort him out. Don't worry when time comes. So it was only when he was 10, उसका जब 10 साल हुआ, तभी उसका allergy ठीक हुआ. But not all of them at the same time. First he grew out of the soy allergy, and then milk, and then seafood. He still has quite a few nut allergies, but it's not all the nuts. Some of the nuts he still can't eat, but it's a lot better than before, because the nuts that he cannot eat, most of them like pistachio and cashew, so these are not very common in Western dishes. We have to be still careful when we go into an Indian restaurant and specify exactly what nuts he cannot have. But other than that, he has grown out of it, and that's all thanks to Guruji. He timed his growing out of allergies. The best. It was up to him what he thought best. For him. So yeah, we had to wait for maybe 5 more years than what we thought we would, but because it was all in Guruji's hands, we didn't worry too much about it. It's then there are plenty others. So we are we out of time already? Because sorry, you're on mute.
No, not at all. It's fine. Okay. Please continue.
All right, I'll continue then. So I'm just thinking what I've covered and what I haven't. So yes, he has taken us out of danger, or there have been scares in our lives. He has taken us out of all situations, every time. So my wife had kidney stones when, so on one of our visits to India, we discovered that she had kidney stones, and there were 6 millimeters stones, and we went to a couple of consultants while in India. We thought that we should get it over and done with in India, because here it's NHS, the National Health Service. They take their time. If something is not urgent, then they put you in queue. In India, you can get help quickly if you spend money. So we thought we should do that. लेकिन इंडिया का डॉक्टर बोले कि इतने जल्दी नहीं होगा. The 6 millimeter stones, they have to be broken down by a process called lithotripsy. So he honestly suggested that we should go back to the UK and do it. So हमने पूछा कि उससे क्या होगा. He said उससे वो 6 millimeter का 2-3 millimeter के टुकड़े हो जाएंगे और फिर वो निकल जाएंगे अपने आप. So when we came to the UK, we told them that, showed them the report, but they don't, trust anything that we get from India, reports or whatever. So they said, we'll do it again. And this time, when they did an ultrasound, they saw that there wasn't a 6 millimeter stone. They were already broken down into 2-3 millimeters. So they said, why do you need the lithotripsy for? I said, to break down the stones. They said, but there isn't a 6 millimeter stone. They're all broken down into 2-3 millimeters. How did that happen? So they thought, obviously, they had done some mistakes in India. But in India, we had, shown quite good consultants, 2 of them. So they wouldn't have both been wrong. So Guruji must have broken them down. And the same thing happened with my wife's. So they did a 24-hour monitor for my wife, because she was having blood pressure medication for a time. So one day they said, we would monitor your BP for 24 hours. And they saw that they were not worried about the BP, because that was in control. उनको उनको लगा कि सुबह की तरफ 6 साढ़े 6 बजे उसको एक पॉज आ रहा है हार्ट में, which is close to 3 seconds. So if you have a pause of 3 seconds, then you are a candidate for pacemaker. But because she was so young, they didn't want to do that straight away. So they kept putting her on the monitor for 2 days, 4 days, 7 days, um, just to monitor whether she was having it more than 3 seconds, because 3 seconds ho gaya to pacemaker dena padega. We kept praying, and it seemed that she didn't have one more than 2.8 seconds. And so the doctor said, okay, so I think we can let you go. For 2 years of monitoring, they released her from the clinic saying, you don't really need it because it's just during one time of the day. So probably that's something genetic. It's throughout the day, there is no such signs. But yes, if you had it for 3 seconds, then we would have had to give it to you anyway, the pacemaker. But because it's 2.8 seconds, we don't need to. So Guruji stopped it at that, 0.2 seconds more, and we would have to go for a pacemaker. on her blood pressure thing. So one day, at the time, my wife was having on blood pressure medication back in India, and we were going to Guruji. And one day, Guruji, I think, cracked some joke with us because he said it in Punjabi, we didn't understand. So he said something about us wearing matching clothes, because both my wife and myself on that day, we were coincidentally, both of us were wearing green. So dono green kapde pehne hue the. So Guruji said that you're wearing matching clothes or something like that. We didn't understand that. And he also said something else. Now, Mrs. Maneka Gandhi was right next to Guruji. She was doing the translating, but Guruji asked her not to. For some reason, he wanted to keep us in suspense. And we were like going crazy thinking, what did Guruji say? But because he asked no one to translate, no one would. So until we were almost going out that day, Singla uncle said, did you understand what Guruji said? I said, no, we didn't. And he didn't let anyone else translate. But Singla uncle did the translation for us. So apparently Guruji asked me, how did I get the Kudi from Chandigarh to marry me? Now, again, I didn't understand what he meant, because I haven't been to Chandigarh in my life. Neither my wife has been to Chandigarh. So, but we knew that he was kind of, cracking jokes, and that got us very relaxed. And for the first time, my wife had a reading of perfect 120 by 80 blood pressure. Because her state of mind, because of what Guruji said, and the fact that Guruji could crack jokes with us, that let us, that made her so relaxed that she had a perfect BP. And actually, she came off BP medication for some time, until the BP flared up during childbirth, but that was many years later. But again, that BP didn't lead, it was essential hypertension. It didn't lead to any complication in anything. And I think the day Guruji joked with us, I think that had an impact. On instances of Guruji joking, this happened once more. And again, it was impeccable timing. So I think Uma Bharti ji and Shahnawaz Khan, they visited Guruji. And so it was at the end of the Sangat, माथा टेकने के लिए जब हम फाइनली जाते थे, लंगर हो गया, फिर माथा टेकने के लिए जाते थे, तो गुरुजी का प्रणाम करते थे, फिर वहां से निकल जाते थे. उस दिन उमा भारती जी गुरुजी के पास बैठे हुए थे पीछे. शाहनवाज खान थोड़ा हट के बैठे हुए थे. तो when I was मैं माथा टेक रहा था, तो गुरुजी ने कमेंट किया, अरे ये मिनिस्टर साहब तो काफी यंग हैं. तो उमा भारती से, हाँ, क्या नाम बताया? गुरुजी ने, then Guruji goes, क्या नाम बताया? Salman Khan. And when he said that, I was just offering my pranam to Guruji, and I couldn't hold my laughter. I laughed, and for some reason Uma Bharati ji was not happy. She was giving me quite stern looks. I thought it wasn't my fault. It was Guruji who joked, and I wasn't ready, so I laughed. I didn't mean any disrespect to anyone. But she was, she couldn't afford to get angry with Guruji, so she got kind of angry with me and gave me the looks. So yes, and a few other instances. there was a friend of mine who worked here in the UK with me. He was my age, but he was single. His life revolved around his family, and particularly his mom. So his mom and dad even visited here, and we met them as well. But soon after they were gone from here, you can't really stay beyond 6 months on the tourist visa, I think. So after they were gone, suddenly he one day received news that his mom was seriously ill. But I thought she was just here a few days back. So he said, yeah, she was here, but she was having a few symptoms. We had her checked, और उसको pancreatic cancer हो गया था, and that took quite advanced. Pancreatic cancer is the worst form of cancer, I think, as you must be knowing. Even whatever you do, regardless of how much money you spend, any experimental therapy and all that, it doesn't really work. Apple's CEO had that, Steve Jobs, and he didn't live long after that. So sorry, I'll just get. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, so the doctors had given her about a few weeks to a few months at max, and if it was more than that, her quality of life would be, not worth living. So, so he left the UK promptly, went back to India to spend whatever time he had with his mom while she was alive. So I told him all about Guruji. मैं बोला कि गुरुजी के पास लेके जाओ. I think Guruji had already left his body by then, but he took his mom. He listened to me, and he took his mom to Guruji's mandir. And after that, kind of things settled down. And he had 1 full year. His mom had 1 full year to live. After that, 1 साल वो जिंदा थी, और उस 1 साल में quality of life didn't go down at all. And eventually she passed away quite peacefully. So even someone with pancreatic cancer, which is probably the worst form of cancer, even that, which is a sort of life expectancy of only a few weeks or a few months, Guruji, they hadn't even seen Guruji before that, but they prayed religiously, went to Bada Mandir, and got an extension of a year, and with full quality of life, and that to people that didn't even see Guruji. So he did that as well, and my friend keeps thanking me, but I said it's not down to me. It's obviously I just told him about Guruji. I tell about many people about Guruji, but not all of them actually sort of listen and respond. Most of them are, most of them act indifferently even after hearing all these miracles and everything. But some of them that don't, they really understand what Guruji is all about. A few others, he's pulled us out of trouble a few times. Back in 2002, I think. So we used to go to Ansal Plaza all the time that we were in Delhi, and it used to be very busy then, and never ever did we were we able to park upstairs, as in the ground level. We always had to go down into the underground parking, except that one day when our driver just got to see a place. It's very rare, upstairs, and he just pulled his car in there. And I thought, oh, very lucky today. So for the first time in years, we have got parking upstairs. And then suddenly we heard that there was trouble happening downstairs in the parking. So I thought, before the whole mall gets shut, let's go home. So because we were parked upstairs, we just drove out. And when I reached home back in Gurgaon, I turned the TV on, I realized that there was shooting that happened. Some terrorists were taken down. I think it was just before Diwali, 2002. Some terrorists got taken down within the car park, and as a result, everybody that had parked downstairs, they got stuck. So they probably spent all night in the shopping mall. Whereas Guruji let us out in time, spared us that. So that there are a few others. So when initially when we used to go to Empire Estate, I didn't have my own commute back then because I wasn't really settled anywhere. I was thinking of getting a car, but then I was keeping going to the UK and back to India, so I didn't really get around to devoting enough time for that. We एक बार Empire Estates in Nicle. We didn't have a hired car back then on that day, so we thought we'll take a bus. We just crossed the road, and there was this car which was full of sort of dodgy people. They were drinking, and they were a young crowd, but they looked a bit dodgy. So I crossed the road back. And just that time, there was this car that came out of the Sangat from Empire Estate and offered us a lift. We didn't even recognize them. And they said, "Oh, we saw you in the Sangat, so thought, maybe you would like a ride." I said, "Yes, very much," because, outside it was, realized that it wasn't really safe. But I had also been told that, on the way to Guruji's Sangat and back, no one has ever come to any harm. So we knew that nothing was going to happen. But we thought that we should go for a car very quickly. So I did that. I got a Maruti Zen, wasn't a new one, got it for a good price. Thoda yellow color ka tha, but looked cool at the time. So we thought one problem was solved. I was really happy with the car. लेकिन क्या हुआ, कलकत्ता गए हुए थे और किसी को देके गया था सीमेंस में जो एडमिन वगैरह का काम करता था, तो उसको रजिस्ट्रेशन मेरे नाम पे करा ले. जब हम लोग वापस आए तो रियलाइज किया कि रजिस्ट्रेशन होगा नहीं उस कार का, because there was an injunction on the car. The person who had sold it to us was in a court case with someone who had put an injunction on all his properties and all that. So मैं सोचा कि यार इतना मुश्किल से तो कार मिला, फिर ये अपने नाम पे नहीं होगा, पता नहीं कार से अगर कोई कुछ क्राइम किया हुआ है पास में तो मेरे नाम पे आ जाएगा. So we were kind of, I thought, no, I should return the car. And it was a miracle in itself that I got the money back, because usually it's not that easy. So I gave up the car, got the money back, and I was back to square one. अभी दोबारा कार ढूंढना पड़ेगा. But just suddenly then I realized that I was getting a double promotion, the one that I mentioned earlier. So उससे क्या हुआ, तो मेरा level जो हो गया उससे company कार मिलती थी. So I got a brand new Palio, and I didn't drive it for long, because after that, soon after, I came to the UK and didn't go back. But for the time that I was there, I got to drive a brand new Palio. It was hot in the market then. So Guruji knew that I didn't need that Zen, so he made me return it, because he knew that I was getting, and he knew that I was getting a promotion, and the new car came with that. So yes, I think I've covered most of what I had planned, and yes, I think I think I've overshot the time by a long time, but there is so much. I'm sure I've missed a few, but yes, if anyone has got any questions, I'm happy to answer. Rather than that, from my side, I'm done. So it's over to you, Kalyan Shastri. You're on mute, I think.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका पुष्पल अंकल.
Oh, नहीं, मेरी pleasure is mine.
और बहुत ही अच्छा लगा. ये किसी संगत का रिक्वेस्ट आया कि वो सन के म्यूजिकल अचीवमेंट्स के बारे में थोड़ा विस्तार से बता दें.
Okay, so my son was doing the keyboard, and he was doing classical guitar. So the keyboard, so इस country में क्या होता है कि grades 1 to 8 होता है. So grade 8 is pretty high. Grade 1 is starting, but grade 8 is pretty high. उसके बाद डिप्लोमा होता है. So डिप्लोमा के बाद वो खुद टीचर बन जाता है म्यूजिक का. So my son was doing keyboard at grade 5 and guitar at classical guitar at grade 3. So when he took the scholarship, took the audition for the scholarship and got the scholarship. So लेकिन स्कूल में जाने के बाद it was they pushed him a lot, as in encouraged him a lot, because he had a flair. So there was this rare instrument drive. So he tried the cello, and he liked it. so he's stuck with it. They made him shift from keyboard to piano. So he was already grade 6 by the time school started in keyboard, but piano is a different beast. So it's got 88 keys as opposed to the 61 that the keyboard has. Needs a lot more skill with both hands. So he dropped down to grade 4 on the piano and started from there. So right now, and then he started the violin because it's one of the lead instruments. Cello kind of plays in the background. There is only one pianist, and usually that's someone from the higher classes and from the people who are leaving the school. So he realized that in any ensemble, he's not going to get to play the piano unless he's really senior. So he wanted one of the lead instruments. So he got a violin, and he already had the classical guitar, which he hasn't left. So he plays. So the piano, he has already done grade 8. He's doing the diploma now. He's got, I think his cello, he's grade 7 already. His violin is grade 6 probably. My wife does all that. So I only do I drive him to the cello lesson. That's all I do. Apart from the cello, everything else he does at school. I think his guitar is also grade 7. I think he's already done grade 7, so he's on grade 8. So he's 15 and he's already doing his piano diploma.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Oh, okay. My name is Puspal. I missed. Sorry, I missed your about 5 minutes initial part.
Okay.
Nevertheless, you've been to Guruji for a very, very long time. I want to ask you is how did you view him initially, and today we know that he's God who descended on the earth.
Yes.
But that time, as you know, as the things were, you could not converse with each other as to what has happened with other, which we know today. How did you view him as a smooth sayer, as a person who could predict? How do you view him at those years when you were in contact with Guruji?
Actually, I was lucky in this respect because Colonel Chatterjee that I mentioned, who he was really like my father. Actually, some people joked about that it said that he was really my father. But yeah, so he was one of the oldest disciples of Guruji, and he gave us the perspective straight away. I said, you have yogis and Siddha yogis, Mahapurush. There are lots of examples. But he said Guruji was avatar. He was a completely different. Well, I don't like to use terms that would classify people like that as Mahapurush and Siddha yogi and avatar, but Guruji belonged to the highest level. So he was Lord Shiva impersonated. If you read his biography, which I had the good fortune to translate in Bengali, he was his birth was attended by snakes, just like if you look at Jesus's birth. So there were 3 wise men from the east. Guruji's birth was attended by snakes, if you read his biography. And